Young producers versus old producers. Who makes better beats? Let's settle this once and for all. So number one, we're going to start comparing the new... I'm just playing. I'm being sarcastic again. I'm sorry. I shouldn't do that, but I'm probably not going to stop. And yes, I'm considered an older producer. And so, no, I have nothing against old producers because I am an older producer. I just tend to be one of those older producers that kind of likes everything, even the new stuff, even when it's weirder than what I'm used to, even when it goes against some of the musical techniques or some of the mixing and production techniques that I learned when I was younger. And I did assert in my last video that a lot of older producers have fossilized music taste. In other words, they're locked into what they love from their era, and by default just dislike anything new. And to prove my point, here comes the comments section. Trap sounds like it was made with a mouse and a keyboard. It is all throwaway and has a shelf life of a week. I don't care, the trap and drill overused hi-hat rolls are fucking annoying. Y'all new generation making demonic music that will never make money. It's garbage, trash, and a reason why the industry hates it. That's a really weird take. So what I wanted to get into, but I didn't get into that last video, was just a conversation about what went wrong. And I don't want to place blame. I want to talk responsibility. And maybe if we can start taking accountability for generational problems that maybe we've caused, there can potentially be a pathway to mend this generation gap. I don't know. Obviously, on the one hand, with people like EMRLD saying they hate soul samples and boom bap is unk shit and blah, blah, blah. That's the younger generation disrespecting the older generation. But as you saw from those comments, a lot of the older generation just unfairly and illogically hates the newer generation, which is ironic, especially given that, especially as hip-hop fans and hip-hop producers, everything we did was hated on by the older generation pretty much. Sampling, they didn't understand that. Using drum machines or DAWs, that's not traditional music, so therefore it's not real music. Rap isn't real music because you're not singing. It was that type of stuff that we overcame, and then we kind of turned around and did the same thing to the next generation coming up because we didn't understand what they were doing, which is weird. But I'm not blaming the older generation for creating this disrespect that it's getting. I'm just saying there's shared responsibility. And when I brought this up to Dame and Aaron, they had some pretty interesting insight that I didn't think of initially. So let me know what you think in the comments. Is there hope to mending this generation gap? And if so, how? How would you do it? Or how can we at least start the dialogue? And to all of you checking out the full podcast episodes on the new YouTube channel, thank you so much. It looks like our viewership is growing, or listenership, depending on if you're watching the video, just listening to the audio on the YouTube channel, but we appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we drop an episode every single week. And granted, we talked about, the disrespect from the young community coming into the culture, but a lot of the so-called old head producers, especially, unfortunately, contributed to that gap. I remember, the whole DAW wars, and even people like Ninth Wonder, who are, I would say, objectively positive forces in the culture, were getting a lot of backlash just for using a digital audio workstation to make beats. And it wasn't because they were coming in puffing their chest out saying, we're the young dudes, fuck all you old guys. It was because the old guys were looking down at them like, why? You're using a computer to make beats? We can't have that. And so a lot of that that rift was unfortunately people from the generation before, because I'm funny enough, there are now old head producers who came up on DAWs, who came up on FL Studio and Logic and whatever was coming out in the very early 2000s. A lot of those people are in their 40s now. Some of them are in their 50s. And so what a crazy time. But I feel like there was an opportunity there for the producers to bring the new generation in and say, okay, this is cool. Let me just suspend judgment and see what it is, and then mentor some of these younger dudes that are coming in using technology I don't understand, so we can bridge that gap for the sake of preserving things overall. And that unfortunately didn't happen. A lot of people were reactive. And I think that just widened the gap. And now here we are where people will make music and not call it what it is. And it's controversial to say this is hip hop or this is black music. Say that shit, you'll get a backlash. And that's unfortunate.
I think the difference is, and you see it in sports as well, is like this younger generation is different, and they'll like disrespect back. Like I think it's normal for like older heads when they see things changing to kind of react a certain way, and sometimes negative. But I don't think like people in my generation like barked back the way that young people will bark back today. Like even
because there were consequences for that.
Yeah, because even with like the NBA, right? There were, who was it earlier this year? I think Anthony Edwards said something disrespectful about like the older generation, like LeBron's era. Like when LeBron's era came, like there were definitely some old heads that hated on the newer era of basketball, but you never heard LeBron's era like bark back too much. Right now in this new era, like with the Anthony Edwards, and there was somebody else that said something crazy about the older heads. I mean, things evolve. Like the athletes, I don't care at what metric you look, like there's better athletes in the league today than there were, just like, people get faster, people get stronger. Like that's just the nature of how we develop. But I think that's the difference between the younger generation today and like the younger generation of my era is like, we kind of just took it. But we had more respect to like disrespect people that came before us. This new generation, I just don't think there's respect. It's kind of like if you say something and there's no history or knowledge of like the lineage, so they feel like it's okay to just talk crazy. So some people might be like, well, if they talking crazy to me, I'm gonna talk crazy to them back. I don't know.
Well, yeah, now we're getting into other subjects because there are a lot of people. I think growing up, we had a little more impulse control. We had a little smaller of a chip on our shoulder. And now I'm just looking at the whole world and I'm like, wow, it's on fire. Okay, cool. Yeah, no wonder everyone is so high strung, and especially, younger kids working in a school. It's crazy. The tension. I mean, like, am I wrong? I mean, I go in there every year into schools, and from one year to the next, you notice a difference. You're like, wow, things, and I'm not blaming the kids. It's not their fault. And I'm talking about little kids.
It's
like
the kids, it's the parents, it's the teachers. Like
it's
I
the system, it's the world, it's the food, it's the media,
it's the lack of sunlight, it's the no activity outside, no arts in school. Yeah, eating food like substances instead of real food. It's cooked.
Yeah, this podcast about to turn into something else, but we do have a huge problem in terms of how we are educating or not educating our young folks and giving it. I think education in its entirety just needs to be revamped. We got to take a fresh look at things and how young people are learning today. I think it's crazy to me. Like there should definitely be a class about how to use the internet, not like how to turn on my computer, but like how to disseminate information, how to receive information, how to, double check what you're receiving is accurate, how to properly research. Because,
when I was in middle school and the internet was becoming like I guess they just like knew we were going to have to use it. Because like internet came around when I was like in elementary school. We started using it in school, I think when I was in the 8th grade. And I had to take a class in the 8th grade. And it was about like safety. It was about fact checking. And that's back before Wikipedia was as verified. So my teacher, like in the class, she was like, go look on Wikipedia, look up X, Y, and Z. And this person looks something up. And she's like, read me the first 3 lines. And then I like distinctively remember this. We were in the computer lab. And then she called on somebody else. And she's like, type in go look up the first 3 lines. And the lines had already, it was 2 different, it was the same article, but on Wikipedia, but she had gone in and just changed, because, you know, back then you could make edits. And then she was just like, do you understand why we need to have like our own pragmatic thoughts? And this is why you cite your sources. Because, you know, when you used to have to write research papers, you couldn't just get away with one source. You had to get at least 3 sources for each thing that you were citing as a fact. Folks be like, one TikTok video that functions with the bias that I already have, we're locked and loaded. And the thing that pisses me off about that is, like, as somebody who has lived and experienced a lot of these things, if I tell somebody I think you should do X, Y, and Z, they're like, okay, I don't know about that. Then a month or 2 later, they're like, yo, I saw this TikTok video and I think I'm like, yo, you remember the conversation we had? And then it turns into you always just think you're right. And it's like, yo, so like the TikTok video could just always be right, but I can't say that I brought this to you. So I don't know. I think pragmatic thinking, I think discernment, I think, again, community and culture. People are leaving their kids to the computers, and that shit is sick. Like, and when I say kids, I'm not just talking about 5 and 6 year olds. I'm talking about 15 and 25-year-olds. My mom is still consistently disrupting the flow of my thought. Like, where'd you get that from? Why do you think that that's true? I'd be like, damn,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what real community does. And I feel like that's why I don't get super bothered when people get rubbed the wrong way from me. Like, that's my job here on earth. I'm sandpaper. I'm either going to smooth you out or I'm going to rough you up. But it's like, there's got to be people like us in the community saying things that make you at least think. If you're always upset by what we're saying, maybe just have a moment of pause and like hold it. But I don't know. The internet is a wild place.
Yeah, I would just, like, before you share stuff, just double check. There was literally a video the other day about affordable housing in LA. And I watched it and it got me upset. So I sent it to one of the homies that works in affordable housing here. I was like, hey, is what this cat saying true? He wrote me back a huge paragraph, basically destroying, everything that this person said. It was just trying to get, maybe they didn't understand. Again, misinformation is information that doesn't really have like malintent. Disinformation is, I know this is wrong, but I'm trying to manipulate people for some type of gain, right? So I don't know if it's misinformation or disinformation or a combination of both, but people are out here just saying whatever, so you got to double check. Hopefully you have some people that you can bounce things off of. And, in music, you can always come to the MEC and get the facts. So that's what we're here for. I'm not saying we're right on every single thing. A lot of this stuff is subjective.
But we gonna research. We not just flying off the handle. And we got good intent. We ain't looking for a viral moment. Clearly, we've been here for a long time. We ain't looking for a viral moment.